We're going to start the morning with a keynote address by a very, very important speaker who's here with us today, Mr. Om Prakash Bhatt. It's my privilege to present our keynote speaker. He truly needs no introduction, especially to all of you. However, I'd not like to miss this opportunity today. Mr. Bhatt's impressive career of 40 years started as a probationary officer with State Bank of India in 1972 and ended with his retiring as its chairman in 2011. Mr. Bhatt served as chairman of the State Bank Group for 5 years, which not only includes SBI, India's largest commercial bank, but also 5 associate banks in India and 5 banks overseas, in addition to subsidiaries engaged in insurance, investment banking, and custodial services. Under his stewardship, the bank's business more than doubled and the share price more than quadrupled. SBI steadily improved its global ranking in the list of Fortune 500 companies and made rapid strides, arresting falling market share, embarked on massive expansion of its branch network, and entered a number of new businesses. Mr. Bhatt is currently on the board of directors of ONGC, Hindustan Lever, and TCS. Next month, he'll be joining the board of directors of Standard Chartered Bank. He's also associated with organizations in the US and Europe operating in India. In such a distinguished career, Mr. Bhatt picked up several awards along the way instituted by CNN, IBN, Asia Money, NDTV, Business World, etc. Particularly noteworthy is the fact that he was listed among India's 10 influential leaders by Business World in 2009. Mr. Bhatt's holistic approach to organization building is exemplified by the following initiatives that propelled State Bank of India to the preeminent position it is in today. Implemented the largest core banking network in the world, which seamlessly networks 18,000 branches and 25,000 ATMs. Pioneered the bank's entry into new businesses such as general insurance, pension funds, infrastructure fund, private equity, and custodial services. Innovated new products, including an innovative home loan product that made the bank a market leader in the segment. Executed a new model for financial inclusion based on mobile telephony, which helped SBI take banking to 100,000 unbanked villages. This has won the Best Bank Prize for Financial Inclusion 2010. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to call on stage Mr. Om Prakash Bhatt. Can we please have you, sir?
I hope that many of you know me, right? No answer. So it is a bit of a homecoming that this is nearly 2 years since I retired from the bank, and after that it has not been very frequently that I have had an opportunity to interact with bankers or people who are interested in banking. And in some ways today is slightly opportune because yesterday the banking amendment bill was passed, and I think there is going to be a far lot on your plate in the future. 6 months from now, for the next 60 years or 600 years, the pace of banking, the kind of banking, the scale of banking in India is going to undergo a huge amount of change. So in that sense, it is an auspicious congruence of events that we are meeting here today. And for me especially, it is I feel quite nice, honored, humbled, not only because I've been a banker and this is an opportunity to sort of connect with bankers and banking in a particular way, but also because I was involved in technology in State Bank of India in a fairly significant way for a fairly large part of my career. So those of you who don't know, way back in 1988, the State Bank of India started a project which was known as CNI project. We were young then and we used to mischievously call it the She and I project. But CNI stood for commercial and institutional, and basically it was a technology project to bring computerization to branches. And the reason it was called CNI project was to, one, the focus was on high value customers and high value companies and institutions, but also the bank wanted to sort of hide its secret from competition that this is what the bank is trying to do. And the reason was simply because there was so much of negativity about computerization at that point of time. The entire trade union movement was opposed to computerization. And in fact, we used to hear all kind of weird stories, and some of it you may have heard or you may remember, those of you who were around at that point of time, that that RAM which started with I think 256 KB, went up to 512 and so on and so forth. So when computers were introduced in the banking industry at that point of time, you had to pay an allowance if somebody had to work on a computer. So when the RAM went up from 256, and what is 256 KB in today's time, right? It is nothing. But when it went up from 256 to twice of it was 1012, the unions demanded that the allowance be doubled because the RAM had gone up, right? So we had to sort of cripple computers to usher in computerization, and which is why the very first attempt at computerization in the banking industry in India, the usage of computers in the branches was not called computers, it was called advanced ledger posting machines. Anybody remembers that? ALPM, right? We could not even use the word computer. So that was the kind of environment in which the State Bank of India started the CNI project. We had a very interesting team of people, and I am saying this because I think it has some relevance to what we do today. We had a team of people in which there was a mixture of bankers and technical people. So roughly half and half. So roughly half of them had IT or related background, roughly half of them had a banking background. And the reason for this was that the IT people alone would not have been able to usher in computerization in the bank. The banking people alone would not have been able to usher in computerization in the bank. And the two together were not able to talk to each other. So we needed people like me, the project coordinator, and various other people who had to bring these two people together. So it was an atmosphere of total, how would I say, ambiguity and uncertainty. And it was in that atmosphere that the seeds of computerization for State Bank of India were sown. And today I would say very proudly that possibly we have one of the best computerized systems in the whole world. And I think the introducer did allude to some figures. We have about 18,000, 20,000 branches strung all over the world on a seamless network. We have about 25,000 ATMs. Let me tell you, we have the highest number of customers of any bank in the world. And I'm saying we, though I'm retired from State Bank of India, but you can retire from State Bank, but the State Bank doesn't retire from inside you, It's always beating inside. So we have about 250 million plus customer accounts, right? And on peak days, the number of transactions that we have per day is in excess of 50 million. 50 million transactions a day. And the foundation for the ability of the State Bank of India to be able to do all this was raised at that time. And again, let me repeat myself why I am saying this, because I think it's relevant to what you are doing today. You cannot do computerization without taking the journalists and the bankers and the business and the sales and all those people in tandem, in sync, in a team with you. If you don't take them along, if you don't understand their language, if you don't understand their needs, if you don't understand what makes them tick, all your computerization, all your technology is going to fall flat. If the people who use IT and the people who deliver IT, if they are not on the same wavelength, then you're going to have problems. So one of the ways of getting everybody on the same page or on the same wavelength is to create certain IT governance structures, rules, regulations, systems, procedures, understandings, traditions, work modes, whatever it is. It could be by planting people. One of the things I did was that in many of the user department, I would plant an IT guy. So, for example, if there is home loans, because home loans was mentioned in that introductory talk, so in the home loan I put some IT guys there whose job was to make sure that the IT department delivers what they require. Because earlier, the home loan guys kept on asking for all kind of software, whether it was for MIS, whether it was for analytics, for whatever it was, and always what they said they were getting was not what they wanted. But the IT guys always said that they delivered exactly what they wanted because, this is what they said, these are the specs, this is what it is. But it was a question of language. The English is a very funny language. The same word to an IT man will mean and sound different than to say a banker. And therefore, this IT governance is, I think, very important in all institutions. And this was one of the things that I attempted. I don't know how successful I was because we didn't set up a governance council or something like that. But did try to embed this thought across the organization that it is important to be able to understand the other side. And one of the ways in which you can understand the other side is to import those people. In banking, in the entire services sector, but particularly in finance and banking, it is impossible to be on the winning side if you don't have the right technology with you. So if you don't have a winning IT platform, a platform which is cutting edge, state of the art, number one, and to have that, to deliver that to your organization, you do whatever it takes. it is only then that you can hope to succeed. I mean, that is only the starting point. There are other things that you have to do which are non-IT, but that's different. So we try to install what I would call a winning IT platform. And why I am saying winning is again, a platform which was able to do all these things which I described, 250 million customers, this, that, and the other. An ordinary IT platform would not have been able to do that. And to create that, we installed core banking software, which has now become, I think, the basic mantra of all network institutions, all large institutions, all institutions which have a huge amount of distribution. I mean, there is core banking software, but there is core software of other kinds, which helps in organizations which have a huge amount of distribution, say retailers, for example, right? So in India, the software that we used was from TCS. Outside India, the software that we used was from Infosys. So the TCS software is actually, here again, funnily enough, the software came from Australia. An Australian company, I think by the name of FNS, and the name of the software was Banks24 or something like that. So that is the software which is used for core banking by State Bank of India in India. But the one which was installed in our foreign branches was supplied by Infosys, a software by the name of Finacle. So we have Finacle running outside India, we have a different Banks24 running in India, and somewhere at the core they are sort of joined so that what we get is seamless. Is it relevant to you, or shall I say something, talk differently? Does it make sense? Is it interesting? It is helpful? And please stop me at any point of time if you want to ask any questions, if you want me to say something differently, or if you want to add to what I am saying. Just feel free. Don't hold yourself back if you have to say something or if you have to ask something. Now, this platform that we have created, I would say the effort was huge, the investment was huge, the time taken was also huge, and there are many interesting stories I can tell you. For example, when I became chairman, the first thing I did was to stop implementation of the software in toto. And that was simply because the way the software was getting implemented in the bank, branch by branch by branch, customer by customer by customer, etc., somehow in time, it had become a numbers game, who will come first, which circle or which region will come first, how many branches I have done, how many branches you have done, and quality control took a back seat. There was no audit, there was no verification, there was no post audit to see that things have been done as they should have been done, there was no mistake, etc. And things became so bad that an account opening could take 2 days, or a simple check transaction could take 20 minutes or something like that, because suddenly the screen would hang and things like that. So one of the first things I did was to just stop implementation in toto for 90 days, during which time I gave an ultimatum to our vendors that either you deliver or else, and or else carried a huge threat which came from the stick that the State Bank of India wields. So if the State Bank of India were to blacklist anybody, they can't do any business in India anymore. They just have to walk out, right? So that was the threat and the stick that I had, and that is what I wielded. So anyway, this platform big, this platform important, this platform we got delivered one way or the other, but this was the beginning. This was the beginning, because all that this platform does is to take away the drudgery of crunching numbers, to take away the drudgery of accounting, to take away the drudgery of balancing books, totally take away the drudgery of sitting, overtime in branches till midnight hours to see that your books are balanced. It only does that. And to many people, this was a huge accomplishment. To many people, they thought this is what banking is all about and that they had attained nirvana. But, this is the basic platform. This is the platform once you have put in place, which enables you to do far more than you had ever been able to do in banking earlier, and therefore far more for your customers to make their lives a little easier, a little happier, a little bit more profitable. And so what we did was, we did several things. So I do not know how much time I have, but we did several things. One of the things we did was that, and this was I think with the help of IBM, we started installing a data warehouse. So data mining was one of the things that we introduced in the bank. And this, on top of the data warehouse, we had to build all kind of analytic engines and analysis for various things, say for business trends, for risk management, for CRM, for even our business goals and things like that. So that was one of the things that we built on top of this software was data warehousing, and many offshoots that we could build on top of data warehousing. The other thing that we did was, and this was also alluded to in this introductory talk that was given, was financial inclusion. Financial inclusion is one of the most pressing needs of India. Actually, economic inclusion is one of the most pressing needs of India, but we believe that we cannot get to economic inclusion unless we have financial inclusion. And we also believe, rightly or wrongly, that banks are the tool to create financial or to expand or increase the speed of financial inclusion in India. And we in State Bank of India, rather patriotically, if I can use that word, we sort of announced that we will reach out to 100,000 unbanked villages and provide some very basic banking services to those villages. And this was again done with the help of this technology. So we created a sort of a parallel structure. So we created those, I mean, everybody knows those handheld machines, something like POS, or where you can, right now it is done on a phone actually. You can have a thumb impression created out of a phone, you can have it sent all over the place, you can have it verified. But at that time it was a total novelty, and we experimented with quite a few vendors. And I think ICICI Bank was also investing a lot of money in this kind of technologies. And at the back end, all these technologies were riding on the core banking platform that we had created. So, that was some of the things that we did. ATMs, of course, when I left the bank, we had over 25,000 ATMs. And also slightly away from computerization, we also invested in communication technology in a very big way by way of video conferencing equipment across the bank, as also by way of enabling the bank to have webcasts of all kinds of events. And the webcasts that we had, you can imagine that the State Bank of India has about 200,000 plus people, of which possibly a little less than 100,000 have screens in front of them whenever they are working. And you can imagine that there is some important event or conference or lecture that is taking place in the bank somewhere, and this is accessible across the country to all these people. You can see what a powerful tool it was, especially if we sort of managed, in inverted commas, an atmosphere where people were expected to watch. And then of course we also created is not the right word, we tried to create a payment platform, which is what NPCL is about, right? So had we succeeded, NPCL would not have been there. But within that payments platform, we tried to do a whole lot of things: internet banking, mobile, cards of various kinds, NEFT, RTGS, a revolution in the payments system sort of we tried to do. And again, this is something which all rode on the back of that backbone that we created by way of core banking. And then we celebrated this event. I think sometime in 2009, we called that event Technology in Concert. It was held in Brabourne Stadium. It was done on a screen which was 300 feet long, the largest screen ever created, possibly anywhere in the world, definitely in India, but possibly anywhere in the world. It was an event which was feted and celebrated and talked about for long in India, and this was an event to celebrate the coming of age of State Bank of India in the area of technology. And when we did that in 2001, while we had achieved a lot, we had computerized all our branches and did all these things that I have been talking about, but to my mind, I thought that we have only just begun. As you are here today, the whole day you will be talking about some software or some functionality or something, which will come out of technology, and without which, you will not be able to do what you should do. And so in a sense, every time in technology you are at some kind of a beginning or a new beginning. And it is important to have that mindset that it is never over. You are always behind the curve, little bit. You are always, sort of trying to catch up. And it is this effort, this mindset and the effort to catch up that keeps you current all the time. So important to understand new technologies, important to understand new functionalities, important to understand new companies which come with these new technologies and new functionalities. So just let me tell you a few things what I think about technology. At the very basic level, technology is nothing, it's merely a tool. it's a convenience, it reduces time, it reduces cost, it makes for accuracy, improves efficiency, and that's about all that technology does at the most basic level. And in doing that, it takes away the drudgery of much of the work that we were otherwise expected to do had technology not been there. So that is level one. At the second level or at the next level, technology becomes an enabler of scale. It helps you to multiply things many, many, many times. It helps you to create value through scale. And which is why if you look at the statistics, you will find that the number of customers or the amount of business per branch, per employee in the banking industry has gone up many times. Not only 100 times, in some cases it has gone up by more than 1,000 times. And it has happened only because it is technology which can help you operate at scale. You cannot do it without technology. So that is the second thing that technology does. And there are a lot of, in today, I can give you a whole number of data points for it. But for example, today if you look at the number of emails that are being sent every day, can anybody hazard a guess what is the number of emails which are being sent every day across the world? Any guesses? 1, 2, 3 trillion? 1, 2, 3 trillion? 100 trillion emails every day. Every day, 100. And 90% of it is spam. And this World Wide Web handles it. Look at the scale that has been created. Do you know that the entire amount of data which has been digitized today, Cisco, anybody from Cisco here? Cisco switch can move that entire data. Tell me in how much time? When you do a Google search, and the moment you press enter, your screen freshens up with maybe thousands or tens of thousands of entries, and it does that within a second or something like that. Now that is looking only for the kind of information that you are looking for. But I am saying every information which is there in Google. How much time does it take for a Cisco switch to move it from one place to another? Any idea? Microseconds, 0.001 second. Can you believe that? Ask Cisco. So this is what technology is enabled, and we can keep talking about it throughout the day. Throughout the day we can keep talking about various data points just to impress you with what technology can do in terms of scale and size. But this is what has happened, and it is because of this ability to scale up that many of the magic in our lives is happening today. But I think the most important part of technology is that technology has become an engine for social transformation. It has become an engine for change, growth, development, both of individuals and of institutions and organizations. And I think this is the most important contribution that technology has made today. If you look at the kind of lifestyle that we have today, and if you have to compare it with 5, 10 or 15 years ago, the way you think, the way you dress, the way you aspire, the way you work, the way you travel, the way you do anything including brushing your teeth, everything has been impacted by technology. And because it has been impacted by technology, you may not realize this, but you have changed in a million ways. Your aspirations have changed. Your daily routine has changed. Your comfort level has changed. Your ability has changed. As a person, who you are is far different from who you were in a sort of a multiplier kind of way. And it may be difficult for people to realize how much we have changed, because most people would like to believe that either we have not changed at all, we have changed very little, we have changed only for the good, things like that. There are all kinds of limiting statements that we put upon ourselves. But look at your children. Those of you, you will find today, I have a niece, she is about 1+, less than 2 years, between 1 and 2 years. She can handle the iPad. She knows where to go for her games and things like that. She can't speak. She cannot communicate. She understands many things. iPad she can operate. Right? Between 1 and 2 years old. There are teenagers, who are so comfortable with not only social media, but with multitasking. Now imagine the kind of world these people live in. Is it not different from yours and mine? Are their values, are their aspirations for life, what they want out of life, expectations from society, the nature of relationships that they have with people, are they not living in a totally different world? Have they not changed? This society of teenagers, this society of people under 20, under 25, if you were to have a subset of that society, and if you have to have a subset of our society, would this be not be, two different societies, one coming from Mars and the other coming from Venus? Totally different, are they not? So when this generation goes away and the new generation comes, it will be a different society, totally different society. Which is one of the reasons, incidentally, why we have so many conflicts in society. A, because there is a difference, but more importantly, we don't understand or accept that difference, and therefore there is hardly any attempt to bridge that difference. But why has that happened? Technology. Technology scale, social transformation, and just like it can bring about social transformation, it can also bring about organizational transformation, right? Which is what we are all about here today. So I think this is the most important thing that technology can contribute. Its power to transform individuals and societies, the power it gives us to contribute, the power it gives us to dream, the power it gives us to visualize, the power it gives us to be different. You can still become the person you wanted to be. Somewhere inside you there is somebody you want to be, right? You can still become that person, maybe with the help of technology. So, this is sort of my worldview on technology. This is the way I look at technology. It operates at multiple levels. It does different things at different levels. And all the levels are important. You cannot say one is more important than the other. They do different things. But we should be able to look at it holistically. We should be able to enable ourselves, our organizations, our environment to be equally comfortable in all those three levels, and to be able to participate in and benefit from all of it. Then only would our being part of this technology world be helpful, if at all. So first level is just efficiency, second level is about scale, and the third level is about transformation. I thought that is just at one point I wanted to make. Now, in your organizations, everybody, I think, is comfortable at level 1. Most of them are inching towards or have reached level 2. But not many of them are aware of or trying to be what can happen at level 3 use of technology. That maybe some are there, but most are not there. And the limitation is not in terms of money. The limitation for our inability, or for the fact that many of us are not there at level 3 use of technology, is not because of lack of money or resources or investment, or even lack of technology. I think the limitation is in ourselves. We who are the leaders of these organizations, we who take decisions with regard to technology, with regard to strategy, with regard to people, with regard to the way forward, I think the limitation, the constraint, if I can use the word, is with us. So it is possible for all of us to look for that time and that space where technology can be transformational in a very, very positive way. It is important, and also when we are talking about technology at level 2, when you are talking about scale, you should be both realistic about numbers and you should also be unfazed by numbers. There was a year in which I opened, 1,000 branches and installed 10,000 ATMs in 1 year, right? In one calendar year I did that. And there was a lot of talk across the country as to why this guy is doing this, including the minister. He was not complaining, but wondering, but not asking me, but wondering, why this is happening and all that. So at that time, there were some people who interviewed me, and they wanted to know, okay, how many branches can we have, and how many branches we should have, etc., and that, how do we manage all these branches? So of course, I gave him some stock answers, the kind of structure we have, cascading, pyramidal, the kind of empowerment we have, delegation, etc., all those things. But I also told him something, which many of you may know, but if you don't know, then it makes a point. The largest bank in terms of distribution in France is Crédit Agricole. You must be familiar with that name. And I think Crédit Agricole at that point of time had about 10,000 branches in France. So many of these branches were small, just like our rural branches, maybe 2-man or 5-man or 10-man branches. But in terms of numbers, there were 10,000 branches. The population of France was around 50 million. So a country with a population of 50 million, the largest bank in terms of distribution is having 10,000 branches. So I said, we are 1.2 billion. The largest branch should have, the bank should have how many branches? I said, about 2 lakh branches. We have only 18,000. So they said, what is your target? I said, given to me, I will have at least 50,000 branches of State Bank of India, right? So just some numbers, just to give you the context for scale, and just also to give you an idea of, how do we look at, what is appropriate, what is necessary, what is desirable, what is doable, what is practical, what we should do. And then, once we have the right thought process and the right metrics on which this thought process rides, then we need to be unfazed. We need to have the courage of conviction to go ahead with whatever decision we take. Because there are always, people who will find fault with you. There are always people who will criticize you. And if that's going to happen, and if you're going to succumb to it, you're never going to move forward. We took, we were quite shameless in taking help from wherever it came. One of my slogans was, let good things come to us from all sides. This is said in the Vedas, right? How does it matter whether it is NIT or whether it is VSoft or Harvard or whatever? Any suggestion, any idea, any thought which came from any employee or any vendor. So most vendors had almost free access to me. So definitely the large vendors like Microsoft or IBM, Cisco, Wipro, Infosys, all these guys, if they wanted an appointment with me, half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, we would do that. We also, for example, with Microsoft, in fact, I had gone to Seattle and I had dinner with Bill Gates in his house. And they were trying to explore the markets in India and what they can do to the banking industry in India. And I knew that because, I think it was Ravi Venkatesan who was heading Microsoft at that time. He had been interacting with me and they had wanted to do things with State Bank of India, and obviously Bill Gates would have known about it. So, this conversation took place, that they would like to spend some time with State Bank, 8 weeks, this, that, and the other. And I was quite happy that they spent time. But I also know that these multinationals, they will bill us for their time. So I told Bill Gates as he was pouring red wine for me, I said, yeah, you can do that, and I'll make an exception for you. He said, so look, we won't charge you anything for, opening our entire database and processes to you. And he was taken aback. And Microsoft came with 4 or 5 people. They spent 8 weeks with State Bank of India and gave us a big report on what can be done and what cannot be done. Anybody came up with an idea or anybody came up with a suggestion, even with say, use of PowerPoint. Now, PowerPoint can be something which can kill a discussion, or it can be something which can stimulate. So, some education around this. About audit. If you've got something on core banking, why should the auditor go to the branch? Or if it has to go, why should you spend a month? Can you spend a day or a week or lesser time? So we experimented with a company, and I don't want to name that company here, but it's a very good company. They helped us with the, we have anywhere, anytime banking. We experimented with anywhere, anytime audit. You sit somewhere in the center, like a spider in the middle of the web, and you have the entire bank's data, branch. So any transaction which is of an exceptional nature, you cache it. That's audit. You put all such transactions in a branch and that becomes a branch audit or thing like that. So we did that. So wherever we could, we did. So somebody came up with the idea of this document storage and retrieval. So we have that now at all the centers. So the documentation for, particularly for loans, it is now all imaged and kept elsewhere. It's all digitized. It's stored outside the city center, and we have a very good system in place for storage, for imaging, storage, retrieval, management, everything. Which is what this check truncation is similar to, right? So we found that the document imaging and storage gave us huge benefits in terms of efficiencies both in cost and time. And I think it is a similar efficiency which check truncation is giving us across the country. This is something which was mandated by Reserve Bank of India. It began with the Reserve Bank of India and had our original payments portal that we were thinking of bringing about in State Bank of India. Had it succeeded, which it did not, maybe this would have been part of that. But today we were just sharing how many per day? Srinivas, you were saying, no, in Chennai?
In Chennai, there are about 7 lakh instruments that are
7 lakh instruments per day. So across the country, it could be easily be 1.5 to 2 million per day.
Yeah, 1.5.
And the potential?
Potential is actually Bombay itself is 1.66 million instruments a day. The other two centers will have about 70. It could be about 3.5 million to 4 million a day.
A day. And the potential, how much it could go to? 50 million a day?
No, actually, sir, the check system is going to die. That is what Reserve Bank of India is
Which one?
advocating very strongly. The check system.
It has not died in the US.
Yeah.
So, they've been trying for 30 years for the check system to die in the US. The check system is the most expensive transaction form in the banking space. Yes, the most expensive transaction form. And it has not died.
It's not going to die, but they are advocating very strongly that we must kill it. But you're right.
Yeah, so it may not die, but as we move more and more into digitized environment and do check truncation, see, imagine the benefit that your customer gets. Imagine the benefit first the bank gets, right? In terms of, you don't have to move all that paper, there is not so much of security required, there is not so much of data entry required, everything is scanned and everything goes into the computer, fatafat. The settlement also takes place that much faster. And if you were to multiply it to, I mean, if State Bank can have 50 million transactions a day, the banking industry would be having, say, about 200 million transactions a day, of which 10, 20, 30% will be checks, right? So you can see the potential of it. But, and this is what Mr. Murthy was sharing with me, is that when you do check truncation, normally you are doing it at your site, right? Does anybody does it at any third party site? No. You are all doing it in your site. Can you move it from your side to the customer side? The customer doesn't really have to come, right? Can you move it there? Will it be not even more faster and even more economical? And can you charge the customer for doing this for him? Fee income. So whatever you do out of settlements, he gets money faster. You help him get money faster, and therefore you charge a fee for him. And in case the money stays with your bank, you also get that float. So can you take check truncation to your customer? And there will be customers, there are customers, again depending on the kind of business in which they are, who may be having hundreds of checks to be dealt with every day by truncation or otherwise. So can this be a thought in the minds of some of the bank or financial services management to take this particular functionality with or without the help of VSoft to the doorstep of your customers? You could do that, right? And this is something, in America there is a bank by the name of Wells Fargo. And I used to admire that bank very much, not because it was a great bank in terms of banking, but it was a great bank in terms of the utility support it used to give to other banks. So for example, in India there are large banks like State Bank, but there are very small banks, the cooperative banks, the regional rural banks, some of the banks in the private sector, the NBFCs, and they cannot do everything that they need to do them. They can't do core banking themselves. Maybe they can't do check truncation themselves. They can't do many of these letters of credits and securities trading and the things that you need to do with RBI themselves. So is it possible that other financial agents, and it is happening, I don't want to name them, but some of the banks in India are doing it for other banks and making a huge killing out of it, and maybe some of them are sitting here in this room. So is it possible to imaginatively think of more and more activities, functionalities that we do as part of the financial services provider for our customers in our institutions, which we can also do A, for our customers in their premises, and B, for other institutions, whether they are competing with us or not, for other institutions, and earn some fee income out of it. Why can't we do that? So we need to keep the future in mind. We need to keep the future in mind in all our decisions. The future means our children. The future means the next generation. The future means this new society which is taking shape. Yes, we talked about it, right? We talked about the 1-year-old who can deal with the iPad and the teenagers and all that. So we need to keep their futures in mind because we are shaping their future. And what kind of future would you like our children, our grandchildren, the society that comes after us to have? What kind of lifestyle, what kind of aspiration, what kind of values? And in all this, what we have to keep at the center, the purpose that we need to keep at the center of it all is the human purpose. Many times we forget it. We talk about machinery and we talk about money. But most people are not motivated by money beyond a point of time. It is purpose that motivates them. And I think in terms of purpose, it is the human being, if you can keep at the center of your purpose in whatever that you do, think of doing, aspire to do, I think that will guide your thoughts and your wisdom in a particular direction, which will, produce different results. I think that's all I want to say. I don't know whether I have rambled aimlessly, whether I have said something useful, but it was a pleasure to be here to talk to you, to have such a rapt and attentive audience. My thanks to all of you. If there are any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, I'll take leave.
Thank you so much, sir. Before we move on, I'd request Mr. Murthy, Chairman VSoft, to kindly come on stage and present a memento as a token of thanks to our special guest here, Mr. Bhatt. Present a memento to Mr. O.P. Bhatt as a token of gratitude to be here with us today. Thank you so much, sir. Your thoughts were absolutely enlightening.
This is my replica inside.
Yes.
First time I got a memento like this, so I'll keep it.
So it will make a special place in your drawing room. Yes, thank you so much.